Welcome to this video on the Hopton 10k marshalling point. We have 20 marshalling points in total, some on roads, some in the woods, and this video is intended to give people an idea of what to expect, what to do when you're at the marshalling point, and give you any other information. We've got 20 marshalling points, 5 of which are on the road, 15 of which are off the road. Then we've also got some unmarked, unmarshalled signs. The marshals will be responsible for putting these signs out and making sure they're there. We'll talk through that later. We also have facilities. We have water and the medical point in a couple of places, and we have parking, registration, toilets at the beginning of the course. So once I've turned all these back on, we'll do the route itself. So we start off down Woodend Road. We pass the first marshalling point at Junction down there on Chadwick. Then the runners are running down Calder Road, keeping them on the left, keeping them on the pavement as much as possible. On all this road course, we're trying to keep people on the pavement where at all possible. Crossing the road here at the flower pot, a difficult part of the course. Someone on Granny Lane here to just watch out for traffic on the blind bends, keeping people slower. And again, signage to make sure cars are aware. One on Hag Lane, taking people down Hag Lane, and a marshalling point here at the junction of Hag Lane and Boathouse Lane. Sign there, up into the woods. A marshal there under the canopy of trees, which is the a T-junction. Then we have a marshal when the runners come out into the golf course, and a marshal at the top of the golf course directing people down Sands Lane. Some signs. We have a sign here to make sure runners don't go back into the woods. We have a marshal and signage here getting runners to run right up into Sands Lane. And at the end of Sands Lane, we want people to go left down into Ladywood. Again, a marshal there. We have a marshal at the bottom of Ladywood directing people into the woods via the stile. Obviously you can't see that with the trees. We have another potential area where people might get lost, so we have a marshal partway through Ladywoods, and then we have a marshal as you're exiting Ladywoods where there's another stile. Marshal at the top of the field here, getting people to turn left, just some signage. Then running down this bridleway. Getting towards the watering point here, so we have a marshal and a water station. Probably also have a medic here, if not at the top of Ouzelwell, maybe more sensible. The runners then come up Ouzelwell without any need for marshals. It's one track road. We know what we're doing there. Marshal at the top directing people through the farm with some signage to make sure that people don't go the wrong way. Left at the houses, up onto the very top of Ouzelwell Lane, and then they're turning right through this probably fairly narrow footpath on the course. At this bit here, the bog there, they turn left and are then running through the woods on the footpath, which is back lane, up to Scopsley Lane near Whitley Reservoir. Then they're turning right down the track. We have a marshal there at Scopsley Lane, all the way back down to where the runners first entered the woods. We'll have a marshal 2/3 of the way down this descent, because there are some dangerous looking posts which need to be runners to be shepherded away from, back down to marshalling point 6. So marshalling point 6 will have 2 jobs to do on the way out and the way in. And then the course returns with, again, the same marshals being used. So marshals on Hag Lane to stop people going down Boathouse, marshal getting people back onto Standard Lane on Granny Lane, marshalling on Granny Lane, marshalling at the Flower Pot Junction, all the way back to school. With the marshals here that are doing a couple of jobs, it may be worth thinking if you need different positions depending where the runners are coming from. And that's it. That's the end of the route. School is the start and finish point. As you can see there, registration is going to be in the school hall. We're going to be using the school's toilets. Parking is the school playground. And if I take manual control here, we've also got parking at Lower Hopton Working Men's Club. So parking at Lower Hopton Working Men's Club, parking at school playground. And then if we look around, we have a medical centre and registration in the main school building. Thank you very much. So here's where it all starts. Here's the gates for the Hopton Primary School. These will be open, and this is where the start-finish line will be located. Depending on the route, we may kind of double check the distance. We may introduce half a lap or something within the field itself. But here's the start-finish line. Once the runners have left Woodhend Road, just up at the top there you can see the school, they'll turn left down towards where I'm standing, and they'll quickly be faced with this junction. We'll need a few people here to help navigate this. It's usually fairly quiet, but we'll need people to help guide the runners through. Certainly at the beginning of the race there'll be a whole load of runners all together. Coming back there will be much fewer runners, mainly on the pavement. So we need to get everyone through this, straight on where the red car is, and then turn right down to disappear behind where the red hoarding is. So across there and down Calder Road, which is on the right. We'll need to watch out for cars coming from all directions here, and also cars coming from Newgate, which is the road to the left. Oh, usefully that's where that grey silver car has just come from. So straight through here, watching out for traffic in all directions. So the most challenging part of the run for marshalling, arguably, is this junction with Calder Road and Hopton Hall Road / Granny Lane. The runners will be coming from Calder Road there where the blue car is. They'll be on the left pavement, so coming around the corner next to the flower pot sign. And our job is to get them across the road to where I'm standing as quickly and easily as possible. The runners should be running on the pavement here where I'm standing after this junction. So it's key that someone's on the top road there looking up Hopton Hall Lane, making sure that cars are aware they come round down there at speed, so making sure cars are aware of that. Then we need someone on the mini roundabout here, warning cars that are coming from Granny Lane, that's on the right, and warning cars that are coming from Station Road on the left. So a couple of marshals here, one marshal higher up the road, and a marshal on at the mini roundabout. So this is marshalling point on Granny Lane. It's only a few hundred metres back from the roundabout. There's a bit of a blind spot here, so I think it's worth having a marshal. Again, just warning traffic, maybe standing on that side of the road. Warning traffic that there are runners approaching. We need some cones here, probably. It's a warning. Then we move to Granny Lane, point 2. This is the junction for Granny Lane and Hag Lane. Again, the runners should be on the pavement where I'm standing. So again, it's a wide pavement. Keep the runners on the pavement, both inwards and when we're coming back on the return leg, which will obviously be easier because it will be a narrower field. And direct them to their right down Hag Lane, where we want to get them to cross the road onto the left, which is the pavement side of Hag Lane. Hag Lane is fairly quiet, but there may be some cars coming up it, and again, if they do come up it, they tend to be quite fast. So this is the bottom of Hag Lane, the junction with Boathouse Lane and the continuation of Hag Lane down towards Woodend Mills, the bottom Mills. There are also a couple of entrances for houses here. So the main thing that the marshal will have to do here is make sure that any cars coming up Boathouse Lane there are aware. Any cars coming up there are aware, so we've got a couple of marshals required here. and direct the runners straight ahead. Probably put a sign up, direct the runners straight ahead towards where the blue car's coming from, and then stay left up into the woods. So this is the last segment that is on the road. We've had a few marshalling points on the road, and then we're up into the woods. Here's the first marshalling point in the woods, Hag Woods. So the runners have just run up from Hag Lane up this track here, and we need them to carry on straight ahead between those kind of trees. What we don't want them to do here is go right. When the runners return, they will be coming down from this direction, so the marshals will need to hang out here for that return traffic, but at the start stay left up the main road. Coming back, turn from there, get them to turn left back down towards Hag Lane. So yeah, so when runners return, they'll be coming from there. I'll just head up here to show you what it looks like for the alternative marshalling when they're coming back. So the runners will be coming through here. It's quite a wide path. They could be going either side of that tree, dashing down. It's the end of the race. It's downhill, but it's not too steep anymore, so you'll really get some people at speed down here. We have these two trees. It looks to a lot of people like left is probably the best. You'll cut the corner off, but there is quite a drop there. They'll have to. A lot of them will get quite a surprise. So try and keep them to the right of these trees, their right of the trees, but at the same time make sure they turn left afterwards. You don't want them to go right, because they'll end up going up the initial path and doing the whole route again. So down the right hand side of that tree and then left. So the marshals on this stop, they've got two jobs, two marshalling points. First, when the runners go up, keep them going straight ahead. Next, when the runners are coming back, get them to turn right. It's fairly straightforward, but this will be a pivotal part on the course for the marshalling. We'll also need signs, of course, here. Once the runners get to the top of Hag Woods, they get to the golf course. So that's looking down at where the runners will be coming from. This is looking up. There's the golf course. We just need to keep the runners going straight ahead. There appears to be a little bit of a left and a little bit of a right there. No one should really be tempted to go that way, but they just go to where the tees are. But just keep runners straight, keep runners on the path. We don't want them going on any of the grass. This is the footpath is public access. The green and the grass isn't. It's the part of the golf course. The golf course have been very kind to let us use this track without kicking up a stink. So we need to really honour that and be careful and make sure we keep the runners on the path at all times here. This is halfway through the golf course section, looking down where the runners will be coming from. Gives you an idea of that kind of path option as well. Just keep the runners running straight here. We'll probably just have a sign. This isn't going to be a marshalling point at all. Now this is the top of a golf course, marshalling point 8. The runners have come all the way up and they get to this part where they run through two trees. That's looking down through these two trees they go, and to this junction here, left or right. They need to go left here. This is an important one because right is a perfectly viable option. It goes the wrong way. It's not the way we're looking to go today. So left past the pile of mud there, left down Sands Lane. This is Sands Lane here. It's just by the time it's kind of petered out. So on here, get them to go left down Sands Lane. Again, maybe just a sign here, going down Sands Lane, there is a right-hand turn into the woods. It's not very obvious, it's quite hidden like you can see there, but we want to keep them carrying on down. Again, no need for a marshal, but we'll put some signage here. So this is the bottom of the track section of Sands Lane, and this is where we take a turn and move to the right. So direct the runners to the right up here. We've put a marshal here for a couple of reasons. First, it's a turn, so we need to get them going right. We could potentially do that with signage, but it'd be nice to get a marshal here because we've also got the equestrian centre, and it'd be nice to warn any horse riders that we're here, we're coming, and it's going to be busy. So the next marshalling point, Marshal Point 9, is still on Sands Lane technically, but the road at this point has become more of a track. There's a couple of stones ahead blocking this path, and we need to put some signage there to make sure runners carry on to this part of the track. Then they'll get to this here. It's quite subtle. They can go straight on or you can go left. Straight on isn't the way we want them to go. We want them to turn left here. Again, just a sign, but I think again it would be worth having a marshal because it is one of the least obvious areas on the track where we want people to. This is the path down into Lady Woods. Just to note here that it's fairly downhill. It's quite slippy potentially in the rain. Quite a lot of knobbly bits. So warn runners at the previous marshalling point to be careful here. So the runners have dropped down into Lady Woods from that direction, and they're now heading down here. They get to a gap in the fence. Hopefully it will be fixed by the time we run. It's currently August, but we have to assume not. We don't want them to turn right and go into that woods there. We don't want them to go down there. That leads to kind of more of a open area. It's not very obvious. It's not really got a footpath, so we don't want people to turn down there. What we do want them to do is continue down, not very far, until they get to this stile. So as you saw, I've pretty much set off there from the break-in defence, so it's not far at all. Now, as you can see, this is a bit of a tricky one. We want the runners to get through this as quickly as possible. And this is the official track. Again, there's a break in the fence there. Hopefully, again, that will be fixed. Runners might try and go under that. What we do want them to do is use the stile. Now, as it's quite tricky to get into, I think it would be a good idea for the marshals to stand roughly here where I am and hold the stile open. Maybe use something to hold it open if you can find it. And then that allows the runners to come through pretty much unimpeded. It should be fairly quick for them. There is a break in the wall there again. Some runners might want to try and do that, but that's damaging the walls. We don't want them to do that. So you want to be here, calling the runners to come through here, and hopefully they will. Once they've come through, they want to head up the normal path, which you will see just continues up back in. Once the runners have gone through the stile down there, they run up the path. The path is fairly well marked, but a little bit worn. You can see there that there's some wooden edging to the path, and it continues straight on, fairly clearly. He says. This path has been nicely decorated with a few metal kind of signs and statues. So as you go on, you will see that they feature along the path. So second marshal point in Lady Woods. The runners have run past a couple of those metal signs, and here the road can go left or right. So that's looking back where they've come from. The path can go left or right. Left is arguably the most obvious, although it is quite difficult to see. But at this point we want them to go right. So we don't want them to go up there. We want them to go right up to the side of that tree and dead ahead there. We'll need signs for sure, as well as a marshal at this part. Now, it can be slightly confusing, this part of the course. It's probably the least obvious, so I'm walking it here to give you an idea of the route. I thought, I could have pictures, I could show you little segments, but I thought it's not that far. It's probably a minute jog, so I'm doing the full thing here to give you an idea. There's a little ditch there. This is August. In October it may well be muddier. People will probably want to jump it. We shall see. The path isn't massively clear here, but you kind of get the idea of it. So there's a little option there to the left. We don't want them to do that. We just want them to go straight on. Get to a log here. You never know, that might have gone by October. Over the log. All around it if they want. And straight ahead. So carry on going down here. There are various points where I think the track is a little difficult to discern, so whoever's responsible for Lady Wood, there'll be 2 marshals in the woods itself, a marshal on the sign on the stye and at the bottom, and a marshal on the stye at the top, which we'll see in a minute. But there is a bit of signage required here. So I'd have some signage here. You could have potentially gone right there. We'll go left. Then carry on straight ahead here. I should have run a bit faster here, shouldn't I? Might take a fair while. I wonder if I can speed up the video. Anyway. Oh, I'm running now. So as you can see, all this track is fairly well laid out, and it's fairly clear. Now, there's a point here where you've got a tree or a stumpy bit, and there's 2 options, left or right. They both lead to exactly the same place. It's just a little diamond shape that's no longer than 3 or 4 meters, but it may cause confusion. The runners, they don't necessarily know that it makes no odds, so we need some signs here to show them which way. That's quite a knobbly, rooty area, so arguably the fastest, but I would try and steer people away from this. As I say, I don't think there needs to be any marshals, but have a sign on the left to go the way I've just gone. Just looking back where we've come from, there's potentially little path there. So again, signage at this little tree is important. Keep running, and now we get to a junction. So the runners need to go right here. Left is where they would come from if it had gone left earlier at the previous marshal point. So we don't want them to go left here. They'll be doubling up back on themselves. Maybe some signage, maybe a bit of rope cordon going from that metal thing across, blocking it, and carry on to a marshal point up here at the stile. So the runners have got to the end of Ladywood. Here we are, we've got a marshal at the top at the stile. That's looking back, that's where the runners are going to be coming through, hopefully less overgrown in October, and they're going to face this stile. Same deal as before, we want the marshals to try and keep it open as much as possible. This one, it's actually quite loose compared to the other style. There's potentially a way of us keeping this temporarily open. Certainly, just open it with maybe a log or something to keep it open. Don't do any damage, don't try and force anything, but it may be easier to allow runners through this one. So the runners are coming from this direction down in Lady Woods in the distance there. They've run up the path into the field and they get to a T-junction option in the field. If you look back there, that's where we've come from. So we've actually come from there, gone down into Lady Woods, back up again. So some runners might notice that and get a bit frustrated. But then they get to this option. We want them to go left here. Right would, again, just bring them back to where we went down into Lady Woods in a minute or so. No time at all. So get them to go left. Then, once they've gone left, they get to another path, only in, a minute or so. At this point, we want them to go left again. Probably put some signage on that post to get runners to go left. I don't think we'll need a marshal here, just some good signage pointing them left. They could have gone right, it's a good path that carries on, but make sure they go left here down the bridleway and getting towards Ouzelwell Lane. Okay, so this is the Ouzelwell segment. So the runners will find themselves getting to this gate. It may be open, I'm going to have a word and see if I can get it open, but there's quite an easy route through on the left. Ouzelwell is quite an important part of the course. It's where the water station is, and it's just before a steep hill. So I thought I'd try doing this on Google Maps. Hopefully it will make things quite clear. So from the previous section, the runners have run down from this track. They've gone through or by this gate and run past this house, and now they're carrying on down the track. There is an old water pumping station here. It's going to be at this kind of area where we're going to do the water. Probably, I think the water would be good here in this kind of T section where a footpath joins Ouzelwell Lane. So around here, we'll do the water. We then need to be collecting the water, used bottles and cups here. Make sure it's as tidy as possible, and as soon as we leave after the runners have passed, by let's say 11 o'clock, we need to get things as tidy as possible. So this junction, we want people to go right up Ouzelwell Lane. The left here goes to Thornhill Lees, so it's really easy to get your car up here. You can get your car up here, we can unload all the water. It means we're not having to ferry the water for miles upwards and up footpaths. So part of the reason for having the water here is the ease of access. It also just happens to be 5 kilometres. It's almost like it was planned. So we get the runners to run right here up Ouzelwell Lane. Ouzelwell Lane, you see, is quite a narrow single track. There are several houses up here. I think 1, 2, 3, about 5 houses plus a farm. I've spoke with all of them. They're all happy for us to run up here, but it does mean for the time we're running, which by this point, 5 kilometres in, there's going to be quite a spread. I can imagine people running up here for 20, 25 minutes. We're going to have runners going up and down here. So it's been really kind of the Ouzelwell houses to not have a problem about this. But we do have to be aware that there may be a car wanting to come down here. Hopefully not. They are all aware, but in an emergency, they may have to move a car down here. So whoever's at the water station, that marshalling point should be warning people to stay to the left here. Now, Ouzelwell is long and it's continually climbing. You'll find that people do start to struggle with this, but I don't think we need any more marshals here. We'll carry on up. So marshals at the bottom, and then once Ouzelwell actually levels out here, we're getting towards the farm. It becomes more of a track, and then this is where Google Maps ends, I believe. So we need a marshal here who will be looking down Ouzelwell for anyone who's struggling, but also directing people to run right and through the farm. There are several options at the farm. There's a footpath that goes down here, there's a footpath that cuts through the farm and goes up. We just want them to keep to the main track all the way through the farm and then turn left at the end. As I say, that's the end of the Google Maps. I'll go back to the photographs now. So here's the view of the farm. We'll need some signage here to make sure that the runners carry on straight ahead. The marshal, who's going to be situated behind where this photo is taken, will be responsible for doing that and then taking it down as well. We don't want the runners to go right. You can see the track there down into the fields. That's not the option. You can see left into the farm, and to the left a little bit further on into the farm again. We don't want that. We want them to go straight ahead to that car, I think it is parked up there, and then turn left onto this continuation of Ouzelwell that's now very much a farm track. They run up here and it's the end of the Ouzelwell climb. And at the top of that section, they've got an option here. They have to turn right rather than going straight on into the fields, which is at the top left there. They have to go right down a footpath. We need a marshal here to make sure that happens. It can be quite a confusing way to go. Once they've turned right, they will see this as the track that continues off down the route. So about a minute after getting to the top of Ouzelwell, turning right, they get to this area, which is potentially the worst part of the track underfoot. I like to call it the bog. Now, this is going to be a bit challenging for those that haven't got good hard-wearing outdoor shoes. Running shoes may not be particularly well suited to this. We're now in August, and as you can see, it's fairly boggy. although it has rained quite a lot during the last few weeks, it is quite boggy. Hopefully it's not going to be much different to this on the day of the race. Anyway, you get to a T-junction here. We want the runners to run, that's where you've come from, we want the runners to go left here, up the hill rather than down the hill. So we don't want them going down there, we want them heading up the hill that way. So, come on Rob, steady cam. They've run from there, we want them to turn left, their left, up that hill there, into the sunshine. It's worth bearing in mind on all these narrow parts of the course, the bit we've just done and a few more bits up to come, that there may well be horse riders on the track. We really need to warn them. We have told the equestrian centre that's nearby, but please advise them that it's going to be busy. Ask them to wait if they can for a moment. It'll make everything easier. So this is further on back lane, and I think we'll need some signage here. So this is looking in the direction that the runners are running. There's an option here to go left, more into the woods, or right, carrying on the path. The path may be really boggy, so I think we need to make a call. The marshal on Scopsley further on and the marshal on the bog need to take a look at this and decide where to put the signage, either left or right. So the runners are now getting towards the end of any kind of climbing. They have run down back lane, which is this path here, and they get to Scopsley Lane. So they come out there where you can just see the kind of hole in the bushes, and we want them to carry on straight here. We'll have a marshal standing just about where this photo is taken, on the corner of Scopsley Lane, kind of where that car is there. So we want to direct the runners to their right down this path I'm zooming in on, and this path looks like that. So we want the runners to run straight down it and continue going for a few hundred yards, I think it carries on for. After a short run down the path, the runners get to this option. We want them to go straight on here, not left. Left is down the big hill, of which Hagwoods is fairly famous. We don't want anyone injuring themselves. It's quite knobbly. We're going straight on instead. Once you've run straight on for a while, you get to this. This is the end of the public footpath for the kind of golf course section, so you have to turn left here. It's quite subtle, so we need signage to make sure that's obvious. So we're on our way home now. This is the last Marshal point. There is another 2 kilometres or so to go, but from here on in you hit one of the earlier marshalling points, go back to the road, and so you're using all previous points. Although this I think deserves a marshalling point. It's a very strange thing. It's 4 bollards, there's some barbed wire, it's a bit of a ditch, it's a bit of a challenge, so we need plenty of signage on here. We need a marshal on here warning people, getting them past it on the right and directing them left down the path. So this is heading back to Hagwoods, Marshal Point 6 that we spoke about earlier, the kind of T-junction. The runners just head along here with the big ditch to the side. I don't know if some of you played there when you were younger, I certainly did. The big ditch on the left, the runners just keep on running through the trees there, and they get back to the Hagwoods Marshal Point, where the marshals will have, after having 5 or 10 minutes rest, will be directing the runners here to go left. Thanks, I hope you found that useful and know much more about being a marshal in the Hopton 10K. We will be holding 1 or 2 face-to-face sessions at school over the next few weeks. Also, on the day we'll need to meet at around 8 o'clock to talk through things and get everything set up and ready. So, thank you very much for listening and watching.